How are you doing this afternoon? Oh my gosh, a couple of days down and just a little bit more to go. You know, tonight, I hope you go out, have a good time. Tomorrow we've got the party, which is gonna be really awesome. But before we get to go and have meals and things, let's do one more session today. I'm very excited to be on stage today, be able to talk to you about something we've been working on called QuickSight Q, and I have a couple of co-speakers here with me. So my name is Zach, and I've been building software professionally for a bit over 20 years. I built software at places like Microsoft and Tableau, and now I lead the QuickSight Q AI and ML team, which includes QuickSight Q as well as some of our other stuff. The reason that I do this is because I really believe that data is a fundamental tool to helping us better understand the world and actually make better decisions. And I think that kind of helps us to be able to progress as a society. So here with me on stage, maybe I'll go from this side to that side. Mike?
Hi, my name's Mike Weiss, Senior Product Manager with Nasdaq. Even though my current title is Senior Product Manager, I've actually been in software engineering for about 15 years, of which the past 10 years I've been primarily focused on migrating data workloads into AWS.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Kliski, and I'm a Senior PMT with AWS. And I cover the question types and question patterns and model robustness, so all the things you type into Q and come out, which may mean nothing right now, but in a second, it certainly will. But true to the nature of my job being questions, I have a question for you. How many of you, if you could, help someone answer an unanswerable question, would you try to do your best to do that? Yeah, I think we mostly would. How many of you have started trying to do that and found that you take on the role of Hercules fighting a Hydra? That as soon as you solve one problem, there's 3 more waiting, and you're like, wow, I really should have thought through this a second more. Well, hopefully through today's session, you'll have some better tools and feel much more ready to go battle that Hydra.
We need to slay those beasts.
We do.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, and this is a picture that I took from my hotel room the other day, and I really like this picture. So I get up pretty early. I like to run. I've run several marathons. Actually, last year I won the Seattle Marathon for my age group, which was both like really exciting and a huge surprise because that was not my plan. But I thought, like, what an amazing day, like how beautiful it is. And when I was thinking about you guys, this like potential of data, like where it can go. We are just at the precipice, like at the beginning of these things. Like as much progress as we've made, there is so much more to do. So here we're going to talk about natural language query, and what's kind of interesting about this problem is that it comes in a couple of parts, and one of them is the understanding of the language, and the other one is then like taking that and using it to actually do something useful. So language, it turns out, is not very straightforward or easy to understand. Subtle changes in language can make a big difference in what we perceive. So the first one, hey, it's time to eat, Mike. He seems happy, but if we all say, hey, it's time to eat Mike, is Mike happy? I don't know. It looks a little frightened to me. So the same kind of ambiguity exists in the data as well. So, am I saying here, show us sales in North America? Or am I saying, so show US sales in North America? So these are the kinds of problems that a language system needs to be able to tackle. So the 3 things we're going to talk about today. So what are some of the benefits of QuickSight Q? How can you leverage its power to get things done? And then what are the kind of real-world aspects, and what should you be thinking about in applying this? Now, QuickSight Q is actually part of a broader suite of products that are QuickSight. And how many of you have been going to QuickSight sessions this week? Yeah? Yeah? OK. So a few of you. So it's actually built on the same kinds of fundamentals and capabilities. So the analytical capabilities, the data that it can bring in, a lot of that stuff is just the same as what you would get with QuickSight. So we're not going to talk too much about those things. But in addition to those kinds of sort of base capabilities, one of the benefits of Q is just like QuickSight is the serverless solution that scales seamlessly with your business, up and down, when there's more data, when there's more demand, or less data, less demand. Q benefits from the same approach. So what is Q anyway? Well, Q enables people to ask questions in the language that they actually use for their business and get data, visual data, as the answer. So what does that mean practically? Well, how many of you have people who've asked you to rebuild a dashboard with a slightly different filter? Is this something that sometimes, oh man, you could get just lost in the number of requests. It happens all the time. And I was telling some folks this week, our sales team, who works on analytics actually, they have got this dashboard that I am not kidding. The filters are like an entire page. It's like an entire page of filters. It's so inconvenient. And so really what we see is that this can be a tool of convenience. And convenience breeds scale. And scale is speed, which improves your ability to do your work. All right. So how do people use it? What are some common cases? There are three kinds of things that I typically see in our customers. So the first is this idea of just kind of looking up a fact. I want to quickly see what sales were in Nevada over the last month. The second thing that often happens is, well, actually, now I want to slice that somehow. So I want to see it instead by week, or I want to see it for a particular type of product. And then the third thing, and this is where it can be really powerful, is the ability to do some kind of analysis, to basically say, hey, well, how does that data compare to the previous year? Why? Why did that happen? These kinds of simple, lightweight actions, questions, are the kinds of things that we see business users thinking. And so to tell you a little bit more about that, I'd like to welcome Shannon back up to the stage. She's going to show us a little bit about the experience of QuickSight Q. Welcome, Shannon.
Hey, everyone. Let me refresh my browser real quick, because I'm going to be using Q live in front of you. So may the demo gods be ever in my favor. OK. Now, what I'm going to walk through is the reader experience of QuickSight Q. So this is what, once you've created everything, your topics, you hand it over to your end users for them to go ahead and go nuts with. That's the experience that I'm going to walk you through. Now, I do want to point out, I'm going to be starting this demo from a dashboard. But with Q, you're not limited to a dashboard. You can embed the Q experience in your own apps or web pages. So everything you see in the Q frame, you can bring that wherever you need it to go. Now, since I am starting with this dashboard, let's just talk about it for just a second. OK, for the purposes of this demo, we are all now part of an imaginary sales company. And this is our operations dashboard. Up across the top, we have some basic statistics. Below that are trends in monthly sales and profit. To the side, let me refresh, because we should have a sales leaderboard right there. Come on. To the side, we have no sales leaderboard. We'll ignore that piece and go back in. There we go. I don't know where that data set went. This is the risk of live demos. But there we have a blank visual. Beside that, we have a map where we have our quantities of new deliveries being shipped. And the rest of this dashboard is slicing and dicing the data by industry, segment, or product. So now, we want to hand this over to users and ask a question. So maybe we want to know what sales were last year. So I can ask Q, show me sales last year. And within seconds, Q will return an answer. Now, earlier I talked about that heads of the Hydra situation. And now, even though Q perfectly answered my exact question, looking at it, I realized, you know, I didn't actually want, and I'll zoom this in for you guys. There we go. Now you can really see it. I didn't actually want just sales last year. What I really wanted was sales last year compared to this year, and I want to see, are we up, are we down, how are we doing? Now, in this first question, I wrote out the full, nice, relatively beautiful sentence, but we can also be a little lazy with Q. So this time, I'm just going to change my question and just say sales, YOY, for year over year. Q recognizes common business acronyms. And once again, just in seconds, I was able to get the answer that I'm looking for. I can see in the top left my 2022 sales compared to my 2021 sales and see the difference right in front of me. These get at that fact lookup case that Zach was first talking about. Fact lookups can cover the who, what, when, where of our data. So now let's move on to the data drill down situation. Drilling into data is where we might want to look at something by different categorical values or by time. So for example, we saw sales and profit by month, but what if we wanted that sliced by quarter? I can easily ask Q quarterly sales and profit. And Q will create a visual for me. Now, maybe I don't really want to look at this in a bar chart, and that's okay too. As a reader, the control is mine to be able to go and change this to the visual that I do want. So in this case, I'm going to switch to a line chart. Now, you might be wondering, well, this is great, time we all have a general concept of, but how will my readers know all of the different categorical values that they can slice and dice by? Once again, we'll go to the side button panel, to the unassuming info button. Now, I am typically one that I would be like, nope, I'm going to skip the preface of the book. I'm going to skip the info button. I am here for everything else. But don't. There's actually some really great stuff in the info button. My favorite part of it is this attributes tab, where you can scroll down and see all of the attributes of your data, and when you mouse over it, it gives you a preview of the different cells. As authors, this can be very critical to helping readers understand which fields they can ask about. So I see that we have this industry field. So maybe I want to ask sales by industry by month. And Q gives me a table. Now, once again, maybe I don't want to see a table. Maybe tables aren't my jam today, and I want to see it in a line chart. Easily changed, but the chart is a little busy. As a reader, I could, before Q, send this back to an author and say, please make this change. I don't want to see all of this. But I can see that the majority of the noise is isolated below that 10K mark. So let's focus on those industries that are just above that. In Q, I can just simply say greater than 10,000. And now I have back to a table of this. But questions are organic. They're iterative creatures. And as soon as we start to think and ask one question, we realize that we have a lot more. Great, we now see our top 10 industries and what the sales were and what months that applied to, but we really want to get down to now what cities, the where of this, because maybe we need to optimize logistics. We're all in a stage where we're being asked to do more with less. So I can simply add that onto my question. By city. City will now get added to my table. And now that I have this other piece, it becomes a situation where I want just a little more down the line. So I'm going to say, okay, well, who's my sales champion there? And top account manager. And now my account manager is added to that. And not only who's the top, but what product is selling in this city. And product. And before long, I have a full table that answers exactly what I was asking for. And if you think about this as yourselves putting your author hat back on, these are all cases where before you would have had how many back and forths with your reader? Oh yeah, I wanted, can you add month? Can you add the city? Can you add the product? And all of a sudden, you've spent maybe a day going back and forth over email creating this visual. And Q allowed them to solve the problem themselves, completely self-service in just seconds. And so now what do we want to do? Most readers will say, great, I want to share this. And what's the go-to reaction? Any guesses? Where do people want to put things? Excel. Why do people always love Excel so much? But don't worry, that security blanket is there. You could go to Excel or CSV. You could even share this visual as a link, which will open up the dashboard with this question preloaded. But new this week at reInvent, we've introduced pin boards, which allows you to save this question. Because as much as I love Q, I don't want to have to write, show me industry by month greater than 10,000 by city and a hop account manager and product. It's just too long. I'm going to mess it up at some point. So by clicking the pin board icon, I can save this visual so that I don't have to type that question in again and again. This is a really useful feature if you have common metrics you want to review, or if you have, in this case, long but very beautiful questions. To see this pin board, I can just click this icon at the top, where it takes me to all the other pins that I've also saved. So if we scroll down to the bottom, here's that table we just created. And maybe we don't want to see it named like this. Maybe instead we want to give it a friendly name. So we'll say sales leader matrix. Sure. If I wanted to get back into this, because maybe I was doing a more iterative exploratory analysis and some firefight came up and I had to walk away from it, I can go right back to where I left off by clicking on that Q icon. So it's a nice, complete circle. One thing I want to point out when Zach covered those three areas is that they're not mutually exclusive. Drill downs and fact lookups, they all blur together. So do an analytics piece of it. And so I'm going to pivot now to that last use case, the lightweight analytics. So we saw that we have sales and profit by month, but maybe we want to see a forecast of that. This is a new feature that we just released, and if you watched Adam's keynote on Tuesday, you saw Adam presenting it too. So I can type forecast or show me a forecast, and the bare minimum I need is just the measure, the thing that I'm counting, so sales. Let me refresh my browser real quick. Q also remembers the questions that I just asked. There we go. So now I see that I have this forecast, and I have dips in here that do seem to be echoed throughout my forecast. And the question is, should I use this forecast? Should I trust it for my business? Is that dip something that I really think is going to be repeated? Or is it something that was a fluke, a one-off, or something that maybe changed? How can I, as a reader, get to the bottom of this? Well, I could go start slicing and dicing, digging through data. I could send it back to my data engineers, put it through a pipeline, and wait and see what they come out with. Or I could just ask you, why? Why did sales drop in January? The why question is one that will do a contribution analysis. So what happens here is it'll identify up to 4 key drivers in the data. This is combining machine learning, statistics, and a qualitative assessment for the dashboards and analyses that you have, as authors, have built. So that way, it's respecting what you knew from real-world knowledge, as well as the statistical correlations in the data for finding things that are significant and interesting. So we get up here, we see what our overall change was, we can see the raw values and the time periods that we looked at, all essential information so that we can accurately interpret and use this information. For each of our key drivers, Q will unpack the specific value from that attribute that played the biggest role and will tell us how much it contributed compared to the other values in that category. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that correlation too, but causation is extremely difficult to prove. So this should not be your stopping point. This should be your starting point. And one thing that you might notice is that in certain contexts, our data tells us stories that repeat. So we see that we have country and sub-region, and when we look at the data, we see that, yes, in our overall sub-region of North America, there were some other changes, but it looks like the United States was probably representing the bulk of it. I want to look at something different. And with the why question, you can. So maybe I want to look at industry. Which industry changed the most? And I can see energy. If I think that maybe I have less sales staff for energy, or if I thought that the economic context around the energy sector just was not going to look good for our business next year, and I wanted to see the forecast without it, I can do that in Q2. So I can say, oops, let me erase the whole question, otherwise I'll get real weird. Forecast sales excluding energy. And now my data will exclude the energy sector. We still see that we do have the same kind of ebbs and flows as we would expect because we have a robust portfolio. But now that whole data set has been shifted to remove the influence of that specific sector, which can be a really helpful way to explore and see new values. But the question that you're probably wondering about this point is, what is this wizardry and how did you make it happen? And for that, I'm going to come back to slides. Okay, we saw the demo. Here's how it works. Now, Q, you notice as I was typing things in, was underlining certain words. Under the hood of Q are several machine learning models that are doing a lot of different things. The first one is detecting what is the important information from your question. These are the entities. So you can see I've colored them here for you so you can see what they are. The next model in the mix will link this to your actual data. Now, the thing about us as humans is that we are wonderfully vague creatures. We know exactly what we want, but very often we do not communicate it exactly as such. So the trick of how do you get Q to know which field goes to which data set when people don't refer to them exactly as they're written? Zach's going to cover that in just a second. But there's one more piece of the magic that goes into Q, and that is trying to interpret the intent. The promise of Q is that we're going to try to give you a relevant visual. So to get a relevant visual, we need to look for words that are going to mean something like trend or compared to. The visual that this question should give us is a line graph of 2 lines over time so that we can see the trends and how they compare. But under the hood, the layer that makes all of that work is not just the raw machine learning models, it's not statistical approaches, it's something called a topic, which is a nice layer between you as a business organization with your own names and lexicons and business rules, and the machine learning power of Q. To tell you more about topics, I'm going to bring Zach back to the stage very slowly.
You're working again.
Good
job, woo! Shannon. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. I love your demo. All right, so topics. What's a topic? So a topic's just an idea. There's some, process in your business. There's some concept that you want people to be able to learn about. So a topic is just one of these. In specific, it's a collection of rules and kind of information, semantic information that kind of teaches Q about a data space. This is really important. A number of people that I've talked to this week have asked me, okay, you have this, ML system and it's so smart and but what if it gets it wrong? Like what if it doesn't know the right words or it thinks that my, data has something else in it? Well, this system, the topic system, is your way to overcome these problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. And I actually have a demo video that I'm going to sort of show you here, but I want to kind of set it up a little bit so that you understand what we're looking at. The topic itself is a piece of content in our system, just like a dashboard would be. Now, we're not going to go the route of just manually creating the whole thing, because here at reInvent, we are launching a new capability that we call automated data prep for Q topics. And this capability is this AI system that looks, so you already saw the AI interpreting the language. This looks the other way. So it looks into your data, and it uses that knowledge to try to prepare for natural language. So in this case, let's use that scenario that we've been talking about, which is the dashboard doesn't answer my question, and let's see how that might look. So I built, and if I use the clicker, this is going to work. Yes. So I built this dashboard, and it's in a certain grain. So I've got services and regions. You can see billing periods. But Shannon came to me, and she says, Zach, you know that I need more data to be able to make our business decisions. I want to see usage. So what you're seeing now is that directly from the analysis, I can click to create a topic, and in the background, automatically, the AI starts doing that introspection, starts looking into my data, the fields of my analysis, and when it's done, which is going to be in just a second, we can jump over to the topic, and we can see the decisions that it made. We're also introducing a new feature that helps you to review these decisions and really understand that model. So what makes natural language different from your standard sort of SQL queries, rows and columns kinds of things? And so we talk you through, hey, one of the things to think about is which fields are being included in the topic. This is really important. If you include additional data in your topic, that makes it searchable. And the larger the search space becomes, the higher the chance for ambiguity, which can potentially cause conflicts in the language and make it hard for people. Now, in this case, it didn't think to include those 3 fields that I wanted around usage, but I can easily step out and add them in. As I go forward, it'll say, hey, Q picked some names. Look, these are field names. Do you think that these are good names? I can rewrite the names if I choose to. I can also see on the right a column for synonyms. Now, synonyms are alternate names for the same data. I can easily click that little plus and add a synonym. Q has already done that. The AI has kind of figured out, OK, I think that product code should also be merchandise code. In this case, it doesn't make sense to me, so I can just remove that synonym. It's really easy, to engage with this user experience and kind of teach Q what it should know about how my data works. In a next step, now it's showing me, OK, but inside each field, I can actually define behavioral semantics. So I can say, this field is a dimension, so it's categorical. Or it's a measure, so you should be able to do analytics on the field. There's also this behavioral characteristic around what type of field. So if it's an identifier, Q will know, hey, we count identifiers. If it's a location, then we will know, hey, we can map locations. And one of the really powerful things that customers really like about Q when I talk to them, it's often a surprise, is this ability to look all the way down in the values of the data. So we're looking at AWS Glue is actually a value deep down in the system, and Q has seen it. You can even relabel those if you want. So now that I've created it, you can see it's automatically attached to the analysis. So the next time that Shannon comes in and begins to ask her questions, so usage quantity by usage date, and you can see at the bottom it's auto-completing some of the things. Service, so as I type them, it's already indexed all of that information and is making it available for easy type ahead. I can change the visual type, and as the author of this topic, I can say, you know what, this is a really good representation. I want to keep it. I'm going to mark it as reviewed. And what that does is the next time someone comes in and asks the same question, they will see exactly this visual representation. The last thing that I'm going to show you is the new add to analysis capability. So this is really powerful because now you saw Shannon teaching us about readers and what you can do at scale in your organization. Also for analysis, sometimes these questions, compare, things that are complicated, year-over-year calculations, those can be hard to build. So this is just a little bit easier way to build an analysis by assembling together out of natural language these visual answers. OK, all right, now we're going to look at one more thing. So of course what happens is over time things change, right? The data changes, people start using the system. So a natural question is what happens with the topic? Who here, raise your hand, believes that you know every question anybody in your group is going to ask? Where are the hands? Nobody? Nobody believes that? That's crazy. Yes, it's very hard to predict what humans will say. What we see in the data is actually that it's frequently people use different phrasing to mean the same thing. So what we're going to do in this next video is we're going to see how it is that you can adapt to feedback over time. When you visit your topic, you will see analytics. These are the questions people have been asking. These are the ones that they're satisfied with and the ones that are not. So if you go to user activity, you can see, hey, some people voted down. They thumbs down some stuff, and they said, hey, this is broken. So I could see the question that they asked. I could see who asked it and when it happened. I could see their comment. Hey, no, this should show something else. This needs to be a line chart. Well, what were they talking about? If I click on view, I can see exactly the question and the answer that they got. And then I could see, oh, over time was misinterpreted. Q didn't pick it up. But I can define it right in line. I can say, no, this is time. And by the way, since this is time, I really want to see it as a line because I really like lines for time. I just think it's a great representation. So now that I've done that, I can do the same trick. I can mark this one as reviewed. And once I've done that, the next time this user comes in, the experience that they have will be completely different. All right, one more thing I want to announce for you guys today. At reInvent this week, we've enabled 3 new capabilities for developers. Q, in addition to being within the experience of the QuickSight portal, can be embedded alongside your applications. We kind of talked about that earlier. So these 3 things, the first gives you the ability through the API to put a question into Q. So this is not like integrating directly to, say, Slack. It's not going to give you an image back, but it does give you the ability to do something like pre-decide questions that you want to have go in, or even include voice input. So the second and the third kind of work together. So we have different models for how licensing works in Q. Anonymous access gives you a way to work based on usage. So you can have these Q topics out in the wild and have them scale and not have any particular user necessarily tied to your data. Now, that isn't the way a lot of our customers in the enterprise will do things. Usually, there will be a user that's associated to the account and some security around that. So row-level security is part of that. But you can actually combine regular row-level security, or you can do tag-based rules and anonymous access to achieve something similar. So you can say, OK, this user is going to receive a piece of information that's a tag that gets carried back to the server when they load the dashboard, and then that lets you filter the data down to their use case. Now, I would like to step forward. One other feature. We have a preview feature that we are announcing. So this is not an announcement, it's not a launch, but it's a preview. And if you want to be part of the preview, you are welcome. We would love to have you come on board. A lot of people have told us, hey, we really want to do like a dev test prod style for our Q topics. And so please build an API for that. So that's what this is. This API is now available as of actually next week. You could begin using it. Just reach out, let us know, and I'd be glad to have you come in the program. So I'd like to now at this point welcome Mike up to the stage. Mike is going to tell us a little bit about how Q can be used in the real world.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Some exciting new features coming to Q. We're really looking forward to the forecasting and the embeddability for our clients. So, taking a bit of a journey here. First, we're going to start a little bit with who Nasdaq is, talk a little bit about the problems we were trying to solve in the beginning more holistically, and then really drill into why QuickSight and Q. Now, before I go into this, how many people have actually heard of Nasdaq? Good amount. How many people think Nasdaq is just an index number that is reported on the news? OK, a lot of people actually might know who Nasdaq is. But it might still surprise you how much of a reach we have globally. We actually operate over 30 exchanges worldwide in North America and primarily our Nordics. In addition, we are also home to 41 listed companies, of which we now have 73% of all tech companies and are home to the 4 largest tech companies by market cap. Beyond that, we also sell our technology to over 130 different exchanges worldwide and to 2,200 financial institutions. To say that Nasdaq is the global engine that powers the financial market is not hyperbole. So as I mentioned earlier, I have been primarily focused in the past decade on migrating systems into AWS. Most of that time has actually been at Nasdaq doing this, and that might come as a surprise, since that would take us back to 2012 when the cloud was still relatively new. Back then, we realized that the cloud had a lot of potential, so we started trying to find use cases that would let us test it out. We started with a small system, just our revenue management system and billing system, and responsible for billing the entire exchange. That went relatively well, so we decided to then move our data warehouse and other applications. And as of last year at reInvent, Adina Freeman, our CEO, actually announced that we are going to start moving our actual exchanges to the cloud themselves. And as of this month, we actually hit our first market. MRX went live at the beginning of December, or the beginning of November. So we're really excited to continue that journey. But we have a lot of challenges that we have to solve around data. Trading data is complex. It's not designed for analytics. It's designed for speed. Trading systems are kind of like giant complex message buses that need to put a lot of volume through really, really quickly. So the messages are structured in such that way. In addition, we have to deal with volume. On average, Nasdaq in the US does anywhere from 140 to 150 billion transactions per day. Outside of that, even though we've been migrating to the cloud for the better part of a decade, like many other people, we've picked tools that were more historically used in data analytics. These tools are not purpose-built for big data. We had to do a lot of hacking around to make them work, but we got it there. In addition, because we had picked those tools, we weren't able to expand the bowling lane for other people to participate in the data pipeline process. So it made it very difficult and made us very inefficient to respond to ever-increasing demands for data, both by internal and external clients. Furthermore, since every team went off and started doing their own thing around data, our business users started becoming frustrated with how they would get answers. They can go ask any number of teams to get something done, and maybe one team would do it, maybe 3 teams would do it. So we had a lot of duplicative effort occurring. So, how many people have heard of a modern data stack? No one? Really? Come on. All right. So, the modern data stack is a principle that has become really big in the data community over the past 3 to 5 years. And the basic premise is find cloud-native solutions that are purpose-built for very specific things in your stack. If you go out and Google modern data stack, you'll probably get a slide that looks like a bunch of logos on a race car. This is our version of that. It's a little bit more slimmed down because we've actually picked tools that are specific for our needs. Tools such as dbt have been great for data modeling and empowering our business users that have that skill set in SQL to really move their models forward. Tools like Atlan have allowed us to provide better documentation and reduce friction between data producers and consumers, which is really critical when you talk about data democratization. In addition, we also leverage Monte Carlo to do data observability and monitoring so we can get better insights into when something breaks within our pipelines. But while all that is well and good, the most important thing of any data stack is the visualization. We ended up picking QuickSight, which might be surprising, but I'll get to the reason why. There are a lot of BI tools, but in our testing, we thought QuickSight was the one that fit us best. So, what were we looking for? We wanted a SaaS offering. We didn't want to have to host infrastructure ourselves, and since we were already in AWS, it made sense to at least look at QuickSight. In addition, we knew we wanted to embed it in the long run, so things like security and easy embeddability were important, and then we wanted something that was just easy for people to get on. When we decided we were going to test QuickSight, it was just me and one other colleague kind of kicking the tires, and within a month, we had about 40 users on it. So that's kind of why we figured we had a winner in terms of ease of usability. But I'd be lying if I said we picked QuickSight because of Q at the time. Only earlier this year did we discover that Q was a feature, and we decided to give it a try. One of the things that we want to try to do at Nasdaq is try to decrease cognitive load on the people doing data and empower as many people as possible in the company to access data and get the answers they need. One of the biggest problems with self-service data is that not all tools are built for those people. And even though a tool like QuickSight can empower some of those people, if you're not an author, you might struggle to still get the answers you need because you still have to go back to a central authority or someone on your team to actually get the data you need. And QuickSight Q actually lets those users get the data they need at the time they need it. So I'm going to go into a little demo. How many people out there have ever been in a dashboard and wanted to get an answer to something? Maybe they noticed an anomaly or something interesting. They knew the question they wanted to ask, but they didn't have the authority to actually look at the data. Anyone had that experience? Okay. This situation actually came up. We have a options one-page dashboard that we leverage for a lot of our internal insights. But only a couple months ago, we made a change to one of our subsegments, QCC, on the ISE market. Now, I'm not going to explain what the QCC subsegment options market is. We could spend a whole other subject and topic on that. If you wanted to have that conversation, meet me outside. But the dashboard we had developed only measured the volume and revenue at the exchange level, not at the firm level. So one of the questions you might ask is, what firms are driving the change the most? In the previous world, you'd have to reach back out to your data resource, get them to do the change, have them build a new analyses, maybe something like that. But with QuickSight Q, you can get the answer in less than a minute, simply by typing the question in. Not only can you get the answer, you can then customize the visual in any way you see fit. Combine that with the power of pinning, I think we're going to have a real winner there for our internal users. As you can see, it doesn't take long at all, and you have all the answers you need. And before you know it, you can visualize, you can sort it, you can do everything you can do from an analysis without having to create one or have the capability to create one. All in a language that makes sense to you. So we'll go to another example real quick. And this is where I think pinning is really important. We had launched a new program called the Market Maker Performance Plan on our BX market. Now, at the start of that, there is a performance period where we want to measure volume and kind of baseline people, and then the program kind of kicks off. So one of the things you might want to do is have a nice little visual to look at that. But do you spend the time having a data resource do that? Or if you already know the question in the data, why don't you just do it yourself? And that's exactly what we did. We let the user just drive it themselves and create the visual. And then with pinning, they can now pin it for as long as they want and then get rid of it whenever they need. Q is another way to reduce friction between data producers and consumers, much like a data catalog or better tooling that empowers more people to participate in the data lifecycle. So, what are our results so far in this collective journey? Our options business is 100% onboarded on the new data stack and leveraging Q on a relatively regular basis. Our equities businesses are now quickly adding data to both the data stack and to Q as we speak. And in addition, as we've just launched a digital asset exchange, we are also looking to onboard them as well. Our salespeople can now have more proactive and robust conversations with our clients. They don't have to wait for a data analyst to provide the data for them to reach out to the clients. They can go into QuickSight and Q and get the answers themselves and then go have the conversations. Beyond that, we've also made an effort to start migrating all our legacy dashboards into QuickSight. That way we have a central location for all the data and analyses that people want to have access to. Beyond that, as of just today, we actually launched our first embedded dashboard into our customer portal so we can bring the same power and utility that we are bringing to our internal business to our external customers. And then beyond that, we are looking to bring that power of Q in there as well with the ability to do anonymous and row-level security now. At this point, I'd like to bring Zach and Shannon back up so we can give you some tips and tricks from on QuickSight Q.
Great talk, Mike. Great talk. Yeah, so we prepared a few tips and tricks. These are just some observations, I'll say, that we've made after talking to a lot of customers, building out a number of different kinds of use cases. It's a general purpose data platform, right? So, it can be used in basically any sort of relational model. So I get a lot of questions like, is it good for healthcare? Is it good for, working on call centers? Is it good for finance? It's good for everything, but it really gets down to your specific use case. So first tip, I'll offer the first tip. Look, it's the Amazon way, right? Work backward from the customer. Go and figure out, talk to these people. What is it that they want? Like, what do they really need? And try to get into their shoes. And, if you can do that, if you really feel like you can represent their case, then it'll be a tool that you can use to make decisions as you go through, choosing how to kind of define your topic.
And then the second tip, after you've worked backwards, you know what your users are wanting, you know what data, the scope that you want to set, actually write down those questions that you know you need to answer before you ever jump into creating the topic or anything else like that. Because here's what I see happen. You go in, you get into the topic creation stage, then comes those synonyms. And boy, do you have fun coming up with other words that mean that word. And before long, you have come up with beautiful words that mean this other one, but no one in your business will ever use them like that?
It's a fun puzzle.
So if you write them down beforehand, make sure you pay attention to the exact words that they used. And then that way, as you're building your synonyms, you're making sure they said it this way. Do I need to make an entity? Do I need to create a calculated field? Because you can do those in Q too. So that is my tip.
So yeah, I talked about onboarding. That collectively, when you think about data platforms, that's a critical challenge. But with Q, one of the things that I found important is education. When I was preparing this demo, I reached out to one of our more power users on the options and said, hey, what kind of questions have you been asking Q? He's like, what's Q? All right, I was like, I kind of made a mistake there. And then I explained it to him. He's like, Mike, I didn't even know what that search bar on the top of QuickSight was until you showed it to me, but this looks really useful. So the lesson there was education. You need to talk and communicate with your business users and educate them on the tools that they have at their fingertips. If they don't know, they're not going to use it.
That's great. Can we go forward?
I thought you had the clicker with you.
Oh, sorry, I should have kept it.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so quick recap. These are 3 things that we talked about today. Q is a fast and simple way for you to expand your data audience. Hey, do you guys want to take the next one?
Well, it is powerful AI that speeds your time to value. You saw how I was able to type in questions and get answers in seconds. And with the powerful AI, I actually realized I missed an opportunity in my demo. And I want to show you something, because I think it's something this audience would appreciate. And I will do super quick. So you see my visual that didn't render on the dashboard. This can happen. Things happen. Sometimes they unfortunately happen in the middle of a live demo. But maybe the data is still there. So you can see that this is supposed to be the top 10 month to date by sales account managers. I've already typed the question into Q so that we save some time. And Q is able to recreate that visual for me. Oh. So if you have people and things just happen, it's a good way for you to just triage and check really quickly. And then you can change it month to date, year to date. You can start iterating and having a lot of fun. But I thought that might be something that is, although not the most ideal for a demo, a really great opportunity to show you that when life happens, there are some great use cases for Q that can help you as an author, that can help your readers when they know what to expect, going to the education that Mike just talked about.
You saved your demo.
Yes, very nice.
I thought about it when I was sitting there, and I was like, I must do it.
And this is
I'm
why
so
I
excited.
did videos.
But I think it's super helpful. Yeah. So hopefully that saves some of you one day whenever you are giving a live demo to your leadership and something doesn't go quite right. You just type it in the queue and you look like a wizard.
Fair enough. So NLQ helps organizations get data at the right time to inform a decision. Yeah, I mean, in the historical world of data, if you didn't have the capability or the skill set to ask the question, you had to wait. So you might not be able to make a quick business decision at the time you need it. So with Q, you have that capability, and it's super important in today's world where things are moving so fast.
All right. So I think that's it.
Our
we're going to move to Q&A. Do you want to put up the next slide just so that people can see? So we're going to be doing the Q&A now, but these are some other QuickSight related sessions. Mm-hmm. There's still some more coming that you can catch. Either like there's one coming up, right this evening, and then there are a few tomorrow. But you could also pick these up, of course, streaming as well. And then maybe we can move to the. Yep. So if you want to be part of the QuickSight community, this is a great way to be in touch with QuickSight people. They're very friendly. They like to meet new people and help you out. So please do come and join the community. And then just, I guess, from the 3 of us, so heartfelt thank you. We know that you have